Instead of many object shows, it seems that only the three BFDI, II, and 1 are really discussed anymore. Hello everyone, and today I'll do something I haven't done much of before, which is object show reviews. So I've recently rewatched Object Mayhem, and there isn't really a review I can find, so, the show's not that relevant anymore, so I guess I'll give it some attention. I primarily want to cover stuff that isn't too satirized by oversaturated in the object show community. Like BFDI, II, 1, stuff people always make videos about, always talk about. I want to encourage the community aspect of the LSC, because I feel more and more during these recent years, surprisingly enough, especially with the little popularity boost BFDI is gotten from outside the LSC, there's just been less and less people caring about what actually happens in the community, and what the community makes. So that's what this series is going to be about. I'm going to use some more underrated stuff though, because Object Mayhem is pretty big. But it's just not that relevant anymore, and I personally wanted to make a video on it. But yeah, if you want me to review something, either it has to be underrated or unrelevant, or both. Alright, anyway, let's get started! As we start off with episode 1 of Object Mayhem, the graphics and animation aren't too great, but since this was an object show made in 2012 in the summer, it does make a lot of sense. Given this is the first episode, the characters don't have that much depth, but there is a good amount of character you can already see in some of the little interactions here and there. So, after forming teams, the challenge is to stack blocks to the highest. It's a pretty basic challenge, but it works for a first one. Dunn tries to stack all the blocks by himself, but predictably fails. Nothing much interesting really happens in this challenge, well, other than Dunn killing Camera. Overall, I wouldn't say this was too much of a special episode, but for a first episode it's pretty decent. One thing I want to bring up is that I think a lot of object shows should be more relaxed with the first episode like this. Even though it's not that great, everybody's kind of a new starting this. And I feel like some people beat themselves up too much over a first episode having to be perfect and having to have the best animation or whatever, and having to just be the best thing ever, and it's you're not really making a TV show, you're just making an object show, And while effort is appreciated, some people just reboot their shows a million times for no reason, even, while they're having interesting plots developing just because they, want it to be the most perfect thing ever. I just thought I'd bring that up. I don't think it's something to get so worked up over. Anyway, on to the next episode. Moving on with episode 2, the graphics and animation are the same, which does make sense since it's only a bit later in September. This episode starts off kinda oddly with Lego and Cupcake watching Friends. It's kind of a weird moment, but I can't help but find it a little amusing. Since Dunn had immunity last episode, Mirror ended up getting eliminated. The challenge this episode is to find a dull, shiny toy. One thing to note in this episode is that this is when Burrito and Red Bunny's rivalry began, and Burrito wasn't really that bad, at least in the last episode anyway. In the last episode, Burrito wanted Jigsaw, Sharpener, and Phone to help lift the blocks because they did have arms. The only odd thing is that Sharpener doesn't have arms, so... What? Then again, in this episode we don't even see Sharpener, so maybe it was a design change. Anyway, fast forward to this episode, and all Burrito says is that they need to make a plan. Then Bunny randomly lashes out of nowhere. Red Bunny says, "Why you keep making plans out on the bell? simply because he got second place last episode. Then Button calls him bossy and complains about being left out. Other than the arms comment, Mario was not really that bad here. Yeah, you mentioned Charmander not having arms this episode though, so I guess that confirms the theory. Overall, I'd say this was a solid episode. I do think the last one was better though. Moving on to episode 3, the graphics have gotten a bit better, which is pretty nice to see. The episode starts off with Lego saying he's bored.
Watch this.
Oh, hi, Burry.
Then Burrito kicks Button off the cliff with the I bomb scream, which is pretty funny. Donut gets eliminated this episode. One notable moment is this.
I did.
You are fat! You're a fat, big, chubby idiot!
This challenge is a game of tag with real bodies. If two people on a team are caught up, they're up for elimination. Yeah, another uninteresting challenge.
Ah!
Don't think I can't still catch you.
To be honest, this is probably the worst episode as of now because even though the intro was funny, nothing really happened, which is a bit of a trend. But I do think it gets better later on. I will say there's a neat mention to Object Universe by Samuel Thornberry here though. Moving on to episode 4, once again, when you start this episode, you can see an improvement in the animation and graphics, this time even more noticeable. This episode starts off with Lego wanting to form an alliance with Cupcake, but she says, "I don't know," a bunch of times. Then we see Dunn trying and failing to be nice to his team. Now he's eliminated this episode, which isn't too surprising, because he's mean, and mean characters always out. Anyway, today's challenge is a talent show. This challenge already has a more interesting concept than the last few episodes. One gag I really like this episode is Cupcake and Notebook fighting about what story to tell. A run gag that'll go across the whole series that starts this episode too is Bouncy Ball and his fear to number 4. This episode also starts Dunn's revenge plan, which we'll talk about a bit more later. It's actually, looking back, this episode sets up quite a lot that'll happen in the series. Annoyingly though, Team Lucky is up for elimination for the 3rd time. It's kind of ridiculous. Overall, I think this was a pretty nice episode. There isn't really much to say, but it's a definite improvement. Probably the best episode so far too. Moving on to episode 5. Once again, another episode passes and the animation and graphics have gotten even better. It's always fun watching these old Object shows have your animation progressively get better, which is something I feel like a lot of new Object shows struggle with, which is kind of what I was talking about with the first episode thing. They kind of are obsessed with being perfect, that a lot of your shows don't get to thrive because they're too obsessed with being a perfectionist. So even if they've done decently far, since the whole series isn't perfectly animated or whatever, they'll start over, which is kind of sad. I knew that though. This episode starts off with Dunn discussing with Donut how he'll enact his revenge. Ice Cream then dies and Pencil Sharpener revives her with a freezer. Mario and Red Button eventually come out of the water. Team Lucky is up for elimination again and Ice Cream is eliminated. No! The bear character gets oh well, I guess Samurai Cow instead. Whatever, no one cares. Since 5 and 6 are 2-parters, the next challenge isn't until the next episode. Moving on to episode 6, the challenge is Bingo.
Okay, is everyone ready for the challenge?
But I want to play the original bingo.
Now back to Dunn's super plan.
You wanna do what? Hey! Put me down!
What the? Did Tamara just poop out some paper? Yeah, overall, this challenge isn't really that interesting. Nothing else can really happen in this episode.
Finally, my first goddamn mother***ing letter.
Alright, excuse you, sir. Jeez. In the end, Cupcake wins immunity. The next episode is a contestant vote, as the viewers will vote on a recommended character. Overall, honestly, this might have been the most nothing episode so far. But I do think the next episode is where the show starts to get its footing.
This is a wonderful night. Lego, look at the moon is so bright.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey, the moon is changing from white to purple. What's happening?
Moving on to episode 7, we see yet another improvement with the animation. With the animation and music, it really starts to give off a different vibe from the previous episodes. It feels less like, general like the previous episodes did, where, like, they were pretty interchangeable with other object shows, and you can tell the show is starting to actually form its own identity, which will become more standard as the episodes go by. The episode starts off with everyone trapping on Jigsaw. Next, it's time for the vote. In the end, everyone ends up voting for Phone.
So Phone, you are eliminated.
This is ridiculous. I can't be eliminated too early. And I have a cool voice.
Yeah, sorry buddy. This is gonna be relevant for you in the worst possible way later. Anyway, there's a tiebreaker between Burrito and Lego. I guess Young's mind control wore off.
Oh no! Ruder has 50 points! That means I have to hit the red zone or I'll be eliminated. I'm scared.
Lego, don't worry, you can do this. Focus on the target. Remember, if you're eliminated, we'll still be friends forever.
I can do this! Did I make it?
No, you just hit me again.
So that means Lego is also eliminated.
Alright, I guess on to the challenge which is viewers next. They end up playing a game of musical chairs. Look at this doofy little Rube Goldberg machine scene.
I hate this stupid chair.
Fun fact, the reason why Joshua actually talks like this is because he was recommended by Animation Epic, also known as Adam Tex, the creator of Anime and Shaggy. And Adam recommended him to talk like this. Here's his comment.
Nope.
Did Calculator just flip Joshua off?
Hooray! Tune and Toast win! So that's all for today, folks.
And it is in this episode that one of my favorite characters in the whole show, whose name starts with a T, has a great character and debuts in this episode, Toast. And also Tune, but he's kinda, Now, I know it's kind of an unpopular opinion, specifically the part of me not caring about Toon, but I'll explain that later as we go on. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty fun episode. Probably the best next to the talent show one. While not much did happen, it felt a lot funnier to watch than the last episode. I feel like the overall mood saved some of the lack of interest the talents run. I know I said before that this episode is where the show starts to get its footing, but I think the next one is really when the show starts to get its complete footing and find its full identity. At least for a few episodes. Well, I'll end this first part of the video here because I don't want the videos to be too long. I had a lot of fun writing this first part. I hope to continue on from what I'll call this first part, the constructional period, and the next part will be called the Object Mayhem to Bring. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all next time.